Before you begin watching this video, I would like to point out that this is a video log of my preparations for venturing out onto tidal waters on my boat from my own observations and research. It is not intended as an instructional video of how you should approach it. Welcome to the boating adventure. Those pictures in the opening sequence there, I found those on the internet recently in a sales page, and it's obviously another Railcraft 19 which was up for sale, and it was based on the River Tamar, and it came with moorings, and the moorings were just under the Tamar Bridge, so obviously it's there in tidal waters. And that brings me nicely to what we want to do with the swamp duck. As you know, if you've been following the vlogs, I've been trying to get the swamp duck up to scratch so that we have all of the equipment necessary to comfortably take the swamp duck onto some tidal water. I've installed the anchor chain and navigation lights, and I've put in an automatic windscreen wiper instead of having to reach out and wipe it with a cloth. We've got some safety ladders on board, and I've also had to send for one or two other things, like I've got the charts now for navigating the tidal Trent, which is going to be our first set of adventures, hopefully in the next little while. So in order to do the tidal Trent, which starts just after Newark, it is advisable to have the charts with you, because there are lots of sandbanks and things that you need to try and avoid, and obviously with it being a tidal river at that point, you've only got a certain amount of time in which to do it in, so you really need to swat up and know what you're doing. Father Christmas has been very generous to me this year, and he bought me a VHF radio. So that's something that I've been looking forward to getting for quite some time, and I've booked myself onto a Royal Yachting Association VHF radio course, which I shall have completed hopefully by the 11th of March. So by then we shall be fully equipped and full of knowledge, ready to tackle our first journey on a tidal river. And we'll take the swamp duck from here all the way up to Newark, stop off at the Newark Castle Marina, and then we'll go on to the tidal river part of the Trent. And we wanted to go first of all up to Torksey. Now we know Torksey because last year we took the kayak to Torksey, and we did a little bit of the Fosdyke, so we know where we're aiming for, so that gives us a little bit of knowledge, which is really why we did that. I wanted to have as much knowledge of this adventure as possible. Once we get used to it, then there are plenty of other places that we can visit. So once we're on the tidal Trent, we can go to Torksey, and then that would take us into Lincoln, and then it would take us to Boston. And then going further up the tidal river, we can go to the Chesterfield Canal, and that could take quite a while to do. And then we could also go onto the South Yorkshire navigations, and that would take us up to Sheffield, and I can take Steve home. And I'm sure he'll enjoy that. And then we can also go a little bit further on. We can take the Swamp Duck to Selby, which will then take us onto the Tidal Ouse, and the Tidal Ouse would take us up to York. And it just so happens that I've done another couple of videos of the Tidal Ouse recently, so again I know where I'm aiming for. And then from the Tidal Ouse it would take us up to the Ripon Canal. That's quite a long journey, and I can't imagine that we'll get all of that done this year, but it does give us plenty to go at. I really do want to try and concentrate on most of the journeys on the Swamp Duck being on the eastern side of the inland waterways, because when I look at lots of vlogs and things, there tend to be the places that people don't go to. So I think it would be useful to be able to go and video those, and really interesting too. These are the Tidal Trent charts, and this booklet with the charts in it I sent for from the Boating Association, so you can find that online. It's the boatingassociation.co.uk, and you go on to their merchandise and publication section, and the cost of this one was £10, and I can't remember whether there was anything to do with postage or not, I'm not sure, but it's just £10. And these are the charts. They're on A4, so I was thinking that maybe I would take this booklet to pieces. So it's really based on A3 sheets, so if I cut them into A4, and then I'm going to laminate each of these charts and put them together with a bit of a binder, and I think that might make them last a bit longer. There are two other publications of the charts for the Trent that you can get. You can get the first set, which is the non-tidal Trent, which basically takes you up to Newark. But we've done that before without the charts, so I'm maybe not bothered with that one. And then you can get the last section, which takes you from Trent Falls up to the city of York, which is something I will perhaps look out for at a later stage. So I've got the set of them. So the Boating Association is where you will get these from, and we'll have a look at them in a little bit of detail. But first of all, I'm going to laminate them. Okay, so there we have it. I've put all of the charts into a folder and laminated them, so that's going to keep them whole lot better. The initial information is all there. We'll look at that in some detail in a minute. And then here are the charts. Another piece of information which I've also included is this sheet, which I found on the internet a long time ago, and it has the telephone numbers of all the locks on the River Trent, including the non-tidal section, and that proved very useful to us when we were going against flood water and we needed to get swiftly into Gunthorpe Lock. So we were able to telephone the lockkeeper and ask them to have the gates open so that we could basically just make a run for it. Otherwise, the boat would have got turned round with the current coming from the weir. So that proved very useful. So let's have a look at these navigational charts in some detail. This is the first page, and it shows Cromwell Lock, which is where the tidal Trent is separated from the non-tidal Trent. So we would end up waiting at Cromwell Lock, ready for the go-ahead to go on to the tidal Trent. And as you can see, it follows up this page, and there are lots of notes and things to look out for. And you can see how the River Trent really does start to meander as it's coming towards its mouth on the Humber. It's really slowing down here and meanders. Now the idea is that where the river is straight, the channel is more or less in the middle. But when you get to a bend, then you need to stick to the outside bend rather than the inside bend. This is the second page, and as we see this go up, you get more and more little notes, and you can follow the red channel as it goes around these bends. And then we come up to this yellow area at the top here, which is called Normanton Island, and there are some special notes for this bit. And you can see just where you have to follow the channel away from the bend there. Look, you can see that in the middle of the channel there is a sandbank, so you've got to negotiate between that sandbank and the outside edge of the bend. And these are some of the difficulties you might have. These guys here didn't pay any attention, and this is what they ended up having to do to free up the boat. There are lots of navigational notes to help you. They basically say the same thing really. Never cut the corner when taking a bend. The safe channel is found, with exceptions clearly shown in these charts, in the middle of a straight rack, i.e. straight length. On bends, the water flows substantially faster along the outside of the bend, and this swiftly moving current carves out a deeper channel. The opposite tends to happen on the inside bend. There the water flow is slowed by the bend, and silt carried by the river tends to be deposited. Over time, these deposits build up a shoal, bank or sand or mud, dangerously close to the surface of the water, but concealed from view. Do not attempt to navigate the tidal sections without safety equipment, anchor, sufficient chain ropes, life jackets for all crew. Ensure that you observe the Canal and River Trust bylaws and that you have a clear understanding of the international collision regulations. And it also says full navigational lights should be lit when underway in poor visibility or during the hours of darkness. A tunnel light is not an acceptable substitute. So I'm glad that I put in that navigation light. And I really do need to study these charts very carefully. I have had a look at these international collision regulations, and in the main they talk about lane discipline, channel discipline. They are a group of regulations that were formulated to try and avoid excess collisions in places like the English Channel. But basically what it is saying that if you are following a channel such as the red channel on the maps that we've seen, then you basically need to try and steer to the starboard edge of the channel. So that means that there's clear water up the middle so that boats can pass safely. So that's one of the things that it talks about. And also to make it clear that if you are going to steer off to maybe to a lock or a pontoon, that you do that deliberately and the boat almost goes at right angles straight to where it's going, so it doesn't look as though you're straying across the channels. It talks about other things like smaller boats staying out of the way and giving way to larger boats, which makes a whole lot of sense. And then one of the things which I found surprising, it talks about that boats over a certain length should not be crewed by a single person. And when you look at the lengths, it would actually apply to some narrow boats. And obviously there are people that single handle their narrow boats. They can't suddenly magic up a crew member just to go up and down the Trent. And you'll see plenty of videos and vlogs on YouTube where people are single-handedly going up and down the tidal Trent. So I don't think it's something that's enforced. But it is there, it is a regulation, and obviously it can be mitigated by using the lock keepers. They'll keep an eye on you, you know, you give them times when you're expected to arrive at the next destination, that kind of thing. Or you could buddy up with somebody, either do that formally or just buddy up with somebody who happens to be in the lock when you are and going to the same place. And I'm pretty sure that amongst the boating community, that if a skipper sees another skipper in difficulty, they're not going to just pass them by, they are going to help out. That's the nature of the boating community. So these things can be mitigated. When it came to looking for a VHF radio recently, first of all I had a choice between either installing a handset or onto the boat or having a portable system. So I decided that I would go for the portable option, basically because it would be of use when I'm out on the kayak, as well as being out on the swamp duck. And also I think I would struggle to find room to install it securely on the swamp duck. So I decided to go for the handheld portable option. But I needed to find out what was a good set to get, and I looked on places like Amazon, and the prices of them ranged from not very much to some quite expensive ones. And so I thought I would seek some further advice. So I went on to Facebook and I joined the TrentLink Facebook group, which is an excellent group. It's people that are concerned with doing what I'm about to do, which is to use the tidal Trent. And so I put a post on there asking for advice as to what kind of handset people were actually using. And I was very surprised at the amount of information and remarks that I got. And so I had to sift through them very carefully. It actually caused quite a discussion in that group, which eventually was closed down by the administrator because I think it was beginning to get a bit scary. So thank you to all those people who did respond and gave me some really good sound advice. Okay, so having taken lots of advice, this was the radio that was actually bought. and it came from a company called Marine Scene. We found that it was slightly at a discounted rate with them, rather than buying it from somewhere like Amazon. So this is one that a lot of people said they had and they thought it was okay. So it's a standard Horizon HX 300E and it's one of these that is supposed to float, and it has a light on it when it hits the water, which could be useful if you've lost it and looking for it. And it has a 5-watt transmit power. So here it is. It's not dissimilar to the radios that I used to use when I worked for the Peak District National Park as a ranger, except they had a little separate handheld device to speak into. You just took that onto your rucksack, and then you just had the little handheld thing. Now, according to the rules and regulations, because this is a portable transceiver and it's not permanently fixed to the boat, then the boat doesn't have to have a license for it, but you do have to have a license for this device. But it does mean that I can transfer that and use that when I'm out kayaking. Again, obviously the kayak doesn't have to be licensed because the actual transceiver itself is licensed. Now you get the license from Ofcom. You go onto the Ofcom website, and I found it quite difficult to follow through the procedure, but I did it in the end, and that gives you the license, and you get a license number, and it's classed as a ship portable radio license. And then you also get something called an MNSI number for the radio. So the actual radio is now licensed. The only thing you have to do when you're setting it up is, according to the notes that came with it, you have to set it up for the United Kingdom. So you go through the little procedures and you just have to change the region to 01, and that then makes sure that it's all kitted out for the United Kingdom. So apart from that, I haven't switched it on to do anything with. That's because at the moment I'm not licensed and we're not on water. So the idea of this is you use it when you're out on the water. It's not a land-based radio thing. That's because they don't want people interfering with things like air sea rescue or the Coast Guard or anybody like that. One of the reasons I also went for this radio is because the operating procedures are quite basic, and it comes with a little instruction book, and I've read through that, and it's quite straightforward really. Basically, when you're out on the boat, it stays on channel 16, which is the home channel, if you like, and you have it on all the time so that you can listen out to other people who might be in distress or whatever, and then you can help to pass messages on and so forth. The range of this is something like 8 kilometers line of sight, so it's not massively powerful, but I think there's probably enough on there for you to be able to convey a message to another boat with the VHF setup, or to the lock keepers on the various locks on the Tidal Trent. So I now have to do the operator's license course, and I'm going to be doing that on the 10th and 11th of March. I've booked for a classroom session. You can do it online, but I thought I would prefer to interact with people. So I'm doing it at a local sailing club, who is part of the Royal Yachting Association, who run these courses. And the course and the exam is around about £95, and that includes a course booklet which is on its way. The actual radio cost, I think it was just about under £130. Might have been even less than that, but I didn't buy it, so I'm not absolutely certain of all the details of that. As well as the charts for the Tidal Trent, I've also obtained a Nicholson's Waterway Guide 6, Nottingham, York and the North East. And this contains the areas that I really want to concentrate on this year with the swamp duck. So here I am, around about here. The swamp duck is in the marina just off the River Trent. So we've got the non-tidal Trent here, and then it comes on to the tidal Trent at Cromwell Lock, and then it carries on the tidal Trent. You can see this is Torksey, and from Torksey it takes us to Lincoln, and then all the way down to Boston. There's a little bit of a branch there which might be worth exploring, and then back onto the tidal Trent takes you up to Gainsborough, West Stockwith, and that's where the beginning of the Chesterfield Canal is. So that takes you down there. Now you can't do the whole of the Chesterfield Canal because at the Norwood Tunnel it stops because the Norwood Tunnel collapsed. But there is some of the Chesterfield Canal after that, which you obviously can't get to on the swamp duck. But that looks like an ideal candidate there to take the kayak and do that little bit of the Chesterfield Canal. Then if we go back onto the Trent at West Stockwith and carry on north, and then it takes you up to Keedby, and from Keedby then that you can then go on to the South Yorkshire Navigations, and that will take you down to Sheffield, past Rotherham, Sheffield, quite a way and quite a few locks, but that will be good to do. And then you've got a bit of a choice really. You can either go back onto the River Trent and go down to Trent Falls and then take a left here and go up to Goole, or you can go several ways. You can go up the new Junction Canal and then turn right and go up to Goole, or turn left and go on to the Aire and Calder navigation, and then this way here on the Selby Canal to Selby, and that would take you onto the Ouse, the tidal Ouse, until you get just outside York at Naburn Lock, and then past York that takes you up onto the Ripon Canal and as far as Ripon, and that's the extent of the network there. There's one other little bit here, which is the River Derwent, and that takes you up to Stamford Bridge. And you've also got this little bit of canal, the Pocklington Canal, which I have seen a few videos of, and it does look quite narrow and difficult to do. So there's plenty to keep us occupied in this eastern part of the network. I definitely want to get plenty of kayaking in this year if I can, and my youngest daughter bought me this book of the Norfolk Broads Canoe and Kayak Guide, which looks very good. It's got all the different routes and where to start and costings and that kind of thing, and quite a few good ideas. Lots of charts and things. So what I intend to do with the kayak again is to try and concentrate on filling in some of those little bits of canal that would be difficult to get to with the swamp duck, and also to try and get some use out of it on the Norfolk Broads. And it does mention in this guide how useful it would be to have a VHF radio if you're out on the Norfolk Broads, because the ranges there operate a VHF system. So again, there's plenty for us to go at this year. I just need to get rid of my last remaining bit of cold and flu, and we need to get going. Okay, so there are one or two other things that I want to purchase before we do this tidal water. It's about 5 items really, but I do have a cunning plan to get them, and that will be the subject of another video which I have already planned. So you'll have to wait and see how that comes about. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you will follow our adventures as we attempt to take the swamp duck onto tidal waters and explore much more of the inland waterways. It's going to take us some time to do, so please stick with us, and we'll take you to some places that maybe other vlogs don't go. See how we go. So thank you very much for all your support, and do take care.